Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by former Browns women's hockey player Abby Nearis. Abby, welcome to the podcast, and how's everything going?
Hey, thanks for having me. Everything's been going really well. I'm just enjoying that post-grad life.
That's good to hear. And how weird does it feel to be called a former Browns women's hockey player?
It's really weird. I didn't, you come in as a freshman and you never think that you're going to be a senior. Then all of a sudden you wake up and it's senior year, and then you're gone. So yeah, it's really weird, but I think I was ready for the next step.
Well, that's good to hear. And I guess I have to ask you, what have you been up to since graduating Brown a few months ago? Anything interesting?
Not too much, honestly. I've been spending a lot of time at home with my family. I have a summer house on the water in the town next door. So I've just spending a lot of time down there on the boat, and I just started my big girl job last week. So that's pretty much taking up all my time now.
Yeah, how's the new job going for yourself, even though it's been a week so far?
It's going pretty well. I'm still doing some onboarding stuff. I haven't really gotten into the meat of what I'm doing. I'm a paralegal for an insurance company, and a lot of the stuff that I will be reviewing involves non-disclosure agreements. And it's pretty cool because I'll be using an artificial intelligence software to go through these agreements along with the many other things. So it's pretty cool because the legal field, a lot of people think will be changing, especially as technology and software evolve. And I think that it's pretty cool that I can be on the other side of it.
Yeah, no, I think AI is definitely an interesting conversation to have because I heard some arguments against AI that it might be taken away from real human jobs. What's your thoughts on the technology that's being used at your job, and has it been benefiting yourself, even though there's been some controversy to it, obviously?
Yeah, I've also heard the same controversy, and maybe in other areas of life, maybe that's applicable, but I don't think so here because, especially, I can't really speak too informally on this because I'm not a lawyer yet. I'm not an attorney, but I think that the law is something that's very arbitrary and robust, and I think that a robot can't make a decision because even though um, the law is written in stone, it's not as cut and dry as people believe it to be. So I don't think that any sort of software can kind of take over. So I'm not too worried in that area.
Yeah, no, I think AI is definitely an interesting conversation to have. I was watching a story on 60 Minutes about this laboratory in Boston. I don't know what the name of it was, but they make like these robots, and they're starting to become very realistic to humans. And it's interesting to see like how they evolved from where they started to where they are now. But it's also kind of scary to see some of these robots, and it's like this is so accurate to what a human does.
I know it is scary. So I can't say that I'm fully confident that it won't take over human jobs, but hopefully
Mhm.
it won't take mine for now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. It's something we have to keep a watch on though, but I think it's very interesting, like I said before. Now, do you still plan to watch college hockey for this upcoming season? I know you're a very busy person, but I know your sister still plays, so do you plan to watch any games at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think, even just my own team, they hired a brand new coaching staff, and, they're getting in a whole nother class. And obviously the freshmen haven't even played, or now sophomores haven't even played a game. So I'll be interested to see how they begin the season. And obviously I'll always be there to support. And I'm sure I'll be at a bunch of my sister's games, but I have friends that are still playing all across, all the leagues. So I'll still be checking in, maybe not as frequently as I usually do, but
Hmm.
frequently enough.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be interesting with all the Ivy League schools with all the new classes and see how they mesh. But I think it should be exciting to see, and I think it's gonna make the ECAC more fun to watch because last year was exciting to watch for the ECAC. However, it was only 4 teams, so it was like I think with adding the Ivy League schools back to the mix, I think it's gonna make things more interesting.
Absolutely, especially because you look at schools, more notably like Princeton and Cornell. Like they had some really good runs, and you know, I'm interested to see how they continue because they got some big guns. They have good coaching. Even Harvard and Yale, they're getting better. A lot of these girls they're good, and they're getting them from Canada, wherever. So it definitely makes the league a lot more competitive. So yeah, I think it'll be nice to see the league finally come together as one again.
Do you plan to see any games in person? I'm hoping that things will be pretty much back to normal for the college hockey season. However, I don't want to say fully yet with the variants going around, but do you plan to see any games in person if you can?
I'm sure. And, I'm not far from Providence. They come up to play around here. So I'm sure I'll see some. Like I said, I have friends all around, so if they come to Boston, I'll be sure to go and see their games.
Now, I think it will be weird for yourself. I know we were talking about earlier how it's weird to be called a former Browns women's hockey player, but I think it's going to be even weirder for yourself to go to the stadium and not play, but just watch the team from a fan perspective. How
Mhm.
weird will it be for yourself once you get that opportunity?
I think it'll be I think it'll be pretty weird. I mean, I've obviously you go to games when you're playing, but when you're no longer playing, I think it's a totally different feeling, and especially with the way my career has ended. I played my last game and I didn't even know it, and I think that I'll have some nostalgic feelings, but life goes on, and I'll just be grateful for the experiences that I had, and even though I'll be dying to get back out there, I'm sure it'll just be fun to watch and you know kind of watch both teams compete and obviously play out a game.
And what's it going to be like to see someone else wear your number? That's something that I think a lot of seniors don't consider when they leave.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it just till you mentioned it. Because I've been called by my number sometimes by my last name, so it'll be weird, but I hope it's another tall girl like me. So, but if it's not, that's fine too, I guess. But put some respect on my number at least.
Yeah, I feel like it will be in good hands though for next year. I know that for sure.
I hope so.
Now, one thing that happened to you this summer was you were drafted in the NWHL. Now, I know you're not going to play for the team, but I just got to ask, what was your reaction when you got drafted, and what was that process like for yourself?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I didn't put my name in for anything. I didn't make any calls. No one even had talked to me about it. And then, one random Monday, I got a text from Colleen Coyne, who is the president of the Pride, and she asked me to give her a call. So I did, and she said, basically, she pretty much just said, "Hey, we're gonna draft you tomorrow. We only have two picks. You're probably gonna be one of them. So, and then we'll see where it goes from there." So that it was pretty. I mean, it was exciting. I initially didn't really know how to react because, I started thinking about if I'm going to play again, I have to get back into shape. I have to start training again. And obviously that's a big commitment. So it was just a lot to juggle, especially because I hadn't locked down a firm job yet. But, I'm super grateful to be drafted, even to be considered because there are a lot of good girls in this area. So yeah, I'm grateful, but I'm sure I'll miss playing, and I have friends in the team, so maybe I'll go watch, but we'll see.
Now, let's start off talking about the beginning of your hockey career and work all the way up to where you are now. So, you're from Beverly, Massachusetts. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Yeah, so my dad always loved hockey, I guess. He didn't really play too much. I think a bit in high school. He was primarily a lacrosse player in college, and then it was actually my mom. She was a figure skater. She was Alice in Wonderland on Disney on Ice, which is pretty cool. So I'm the second of four, so all four of us started out on figure skates, and obviously my younger sister, she's a little bit less than 2 years younger than me, so we just joined the town program, Beverly Youth Hockey, and we were pretty much the only girls. Maybe there were a few other. And then when I was about 8 turning 9 and she was 6 or 7, my dad pulled us out of Beverly Hockey, and he brought us to Aspid Valley, and we ended up playing there pretty much for the duration of our career. I spent 1 year over the Wizards because wasn't enough girls to field an Aspid team, but the next year I came right back. So um, yeah, it's quite an experience. I learned a lot playing for Aspid. I definitely wouldn't be the person I am today without it, but like anything, it has its ups and downs.
Now, who was your favorite player growing up? Was it someone on the Bruins or was it a female women's hockey player on the national team?
Um, it was a Bruins player. I've always loved Patrice Bergeron, and I've been a defenseman for most of my life, so so it was funny that he was my favorite. But another person that I definitely wanted to model my game after was Nick Lidstrom. I thought that he was a great player. He was really smooth. He was just a solid defenseman, and that's kind of the style of play that I wanted to emulate in my game.
Yeah, no, I think the Bruins, at least for my generation, it's kind of crazy how they've helped grow hockey even more in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is already a hockey area, but I feel like that core on that 2011 Stanley Cup championship team has really helped the Massachusetts hockey scene grow. I'm assuming you've experienced that growing up as well.
Absolutely. I think, a lot of those people on the 2011 Cup team, they're very Boston-like, and I mean that in the sense that they're gritty. It's not, they didn't play like a fancy style of game. They got the puck to the net, they ate the puck when they had to, and they did what they had to do to get the cup, and they obviously did. So I think that's why people in Boston gravitate um, towards that team, because I think that's their style of play, and it has been like since they won in 2011.
Yeah, no, I was a Brad Marchand guy growing up. I love the feistiness that he has, and obviously he's one of the best goal scorers in the NHL today. So it's really cool to see where he's come from, especially since he was not a first round pick as well.
Absolutely. I think it's just, a testament to anyone, male or female or whoever, that if you, put the work in and you really have faith in yourself, you can get somewhere.
Now, before Brown, you played for Assabet, like you just said, but you also played for the Kent School. How'd you get the opportunity to go there and play hockey?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I went to two different high schools. So I went to the Governor's Academy in Byfield, Massachusetts for my first 4 years. And it was actually when I committed to Brown. I committed for the year below me, so I had to do a PG year. And one of my teammates, Becky Dunn, she's actually one of the captains on the women's Harvard team. Um, she had to do a postgraduate year as well. And she was telling my dad and begging him, let her come to Kent, let her come to Kent. And my dad was like, no way, it's way too far, because obviously I would still be playing for Aspet on the weekends, and it's 3.5 hours one way. Um, and so naturally we went down, we visited Kent, and I loved it. And the week after, my younger sister went to visit Kent. So I think that kind of sealed the deal. We were both heading down, and it was probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Yeah, just talk a little bit more about your experience with that school and what was the best memory you've ever had there.
Yeah, it was an interesting time because, as a postgraduate, I'm entering a class that's been together for at least, 3-4 years. And, I'm in study hall. I'm 19 years old, while my friends from my other schools, from my hockey teams growing up, are in college, out having fun. And at 10:30, my lights are getting shut off by a kid that's younger than me. So that was not really an adjustment, but it's just funny how things work out like that. But it was a lot of fun because, I played the sports that I did um, at Governors. I was on the field hockey team with a bunch of my hockey friends, including my sister. The hockey season was it was great because my Governors team, as much as I loved playing for them, we weren't very good and we weren't very competitive. And, this was the first time I was on a school team that felt as competitive as my Aspet team. Every girl was there to win, and they meant business. And, and my coach was super meticulous about the drills that he picked in practice, our preseason lifts, our film sessions. So that was, um, a great time to prepare me for the college life, and how things would go when I got to that level. And then in the spring, I got to I was going to take it off because I was primarily a lacrosse player, but I'm a pretty big girl, so the crew coach sought me out and found me. And so I did that, which was a lot of fun because I ended up rowing for 1 year at Brown. But I would say probably my favorite Kent memory would be during the hockey season. It was New England semifinals, and we were playing against Nobles, and we were in triple overtime. We basically had played 2 full games, and a lot of my teammates from Assabet played at Nobles, and some of the Kent girls had their own vendetta for Nobles because they knocked them out the year before, and playing at Govs, they always beat us pretty good. And my sister actually scored the OT winner that sent us to the New England finals. And it was crazy. The rink was packed. It was, you know, I blacked out in that moment for sure. So I can't really describe it as articulately as I'd like to, but that was probably my favorite Kent memory.
Yeah, when you're in that game, you're so physically exhausted. How do you like mentally just try to stay motivated for 3 overtimes?
Yeah, that I honestly, I couldn't really walk after the game, but I think just remembering why you're there. You know, it's very hard to keep that focus for such a long duration of time, but when you're in it, you know, nothing else really mattered. I wasn't really focused on anything else. That I knew what had to be done. I knew that I had to do my job to make sure people weren't gonna, you know, get an open shot or obviously score. So I think just keeping myself centered and, you know, as an older player on the team, you know, keeping other people centered. We've got something to do. We've got to finish this so we can play tomorrow and and hopefully win a championship. But obviously, unfortunately, we didn't. So,
Mhm.
but still, it was a really special memory for me, I'd say.
And rowing, obviously, that's a great workout, especially for the hockey season because it works out like 75% of your body. If I was reading that somewhere, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what's it like doing that sport and also doing hockey? I can't.
Yeah, it was a lot for sure. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life probably, but you know, I think but Kent is also a big rowing school, so you know, getting into it, I went on the spring training trip with my sister. She also rowed, and you know, it's a lot of work. Your hands are just teared to shreds. It's a great workout and it was a lot of fun because I got to meet some girls that I wasn't exactly close with before. So you know, um, it's nice because you have these friends that come from each team, and you know, I would see these girls in the stands at my hockey games, my field hockey games, and now I finally got to, you know, be on a team with them. So that was a lot of fun, and it helped that I was tall and strong. So I kind of just put my head down and figured it out, and somehow made it up to the first boat. So I don't really know how that happened, but I'm grateful that I got to try something new.
Now, take me back to your recruitment process. What was that like for yourself, and what made you want to go to Brown versus other schools you might have looked at the time?
Mhm. It was a pretty lengthy process for me, you know. It was a hard one because I was a late bloomer. You know, I didn't start playing, you know, a brand of hockey that I was proud of probably until my junior year. And you know, a lot of people look at schools earlier than that. And I did look at a few schools, but I wasn't too serious about, you know, wanting to go to them. And you know, I'm coming into my senior year and I'm not committed yet. And so that's when you get a lot of emails from the Division 3 level, and there's nothing wrong with playing at that level, but I knew that I wanted more and I knew that I was capable of more. Um, and so when Brown came knocking at my door, you know, it wasn't initially my first choice because I was very focused on hockey. You know, I wanted to play for a contender. And you know, I think after visiting, like I loved the school. I love the tradition that Brown had. And I also knew that I wanted to be a part of building something more. And also, you know, as a female, as a woman, you know that obviously there's a league now, but there wasn't really when I was looking, and it wasn't to that much of a viable option for a career path. And throughout my whole entire aspect career, academics has always been stressed to be the most important part of hockey. So, you know, the fact that I got the chance to, you know, pursue academic excellence while also pursuing a Division 1 sport that I trained for my whole life, I didn't like it wasn't really a choice for me. I knew that that was the best option for me, and I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah, is it different committing to an Ivy League school versus other schools just because there's not that letter of intention that most players sign?
Yeah, it's very different. You know, it does. A lot of people like to post saying that they're committed here, but I didn't really try to spread much of it because you know you never know because um, you don't even though you have some weight behind you, you still have to go through the admissions process. You do the early decision anyways, and then you get your likely letter, and that's pretty much not an NLI because you're not signing anything because they don't give any academic or excuse me athletic scholarships. But yeah, it's different, and I think you know you don't know for sure until you get this likely letter. So it's a bit more of a waiting game than other schools, I'd say.
Now, how did you balance both academics and hockey at such a high level when you were with Brown?
Yeah, it was hard sometimes, especially you know towards the end of the season when you know it's grueling, your body's tired. But I think it was the habits that I created when I was at boarding school. I've lived away from home since I was 14, and you know I've been on my own for a while, and you know the structure that boarding school has provided me, you know, translated into college because obviously you don't. there's a lack of structure at college. You can do basically whatever you want if besides going to your classes. So I think for me it was using my free time diligently and getting my work done. And obviously you want to have a social life, you want to go out and you want to have fun, but your transcript matters. And it was important to me to play a good brand of hockey, but also perform in the classroom. So it was hard. It was hard at times, and I wish that it wasn't always that hard, but that's life. So I'm glad I made it through.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's like the biggest thing that I noticed when I was heading off to school last year was just how much free time you have and how you have to use that free time wisely with academics and then other stuff going on. And I feel like the academic stuff is so hard to balance, but once you add hockey on top of it, it becomes more of a challenge.
Absolutely, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I think it's prepared me really well for the rest of my life, I hope.
I definitely think it would. Just looking at some of the alumni that went to Brown, it's pretty great school. So that's really cool that you had that opportunity to go there. Now, hockey wise, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make as a freshman?
I think the biggest transition and adjustment that I made was the speed. I think, you know, I mean, I was a little older. I was 19, but most 18-year-olds coming into college, you're playing against girls that are 22, 23, and that's the biggest age range I'd say like that you've ever played against. And these girls are fast. They've been playing at this level for a long time. So I think, adjusting mentally but also physically to the speed was definitely something that I had to work on, and I think most freshmen do.
Yeah, and just talk a little bit more about your freshman year with Brown and what was the biggest thing you learned during that season?
Yeah, I think it was quite a year. I think coming off of my time at Kent, where we were winning a lot, and we were a well respected team around the league. It was different because not that there was a lack of respect, but I think it was hard, coming and not being as successful as I would have liked to have been. And I think at some points, I lost some love for the game, which is upsetting. But I think I learned, to control what I can control. If I wanted to win, I had to make myself better. It wasn't up to me. I shouldn't say that. I mean, it wasn't my responsibility to make sure that other people were doing the things that they need to do to get better. Because I think you can make someone want to do things, but if they don't want to do it themselves, they won't do it.
Yeah, no, do you think there was like when you were playing with Brown, there was a lack of that, I guess lack of motivation just because unfortunately the record wasn't as what your team wanted to do or wanted to be like?
Sometimes, and I don't want to make it sound like my teammates were not motivated, because that's not the case. I think that a lot of people don't know what it's like to be in that sort of environment. A lot of people don't can imagine what it's like to not be successful in winning games, but when you're in it, it's completely different. So um, so I think it's difficult also because um, Brown is not a school, like I mentioned, where you get athletic scholarship. And I actually read in a Brown report one year that 30% of Brown athletes quit as soon as they get to school, or at least within their first year, which is a pretty high number. So I'm not saying that there's a lack of commitment, but there are a lot of different factors that you have to take into account, like the rigorous academic schedule. And if people aren't winning, a lot of people will jump ship, and to each their own. That's fine, but that wasn't something that I ever planned to do, because I love the game. And so yeah, I just had to focus on myself and make sure I was doing everything that I possibly could to get better to help my team win.
Yeah, and what was I guess when you're have lack of confidence, I think something that I talk to players a lot is how to try to build your confidence throughout the season because it's a roller coaster every year. You're dealing with so much, and there's a lot of outside factors that comes with the college hockey season. So trying to can sustain consistent confidence is something that's really important for a player to have throughout the season, and it's kind of a key factor that I think a lot of fans don't consider. So what was your strategy for trying to build up your confidence during the seasons, especially when your team wasn't as successful as you wanted them to be?
Yeah, I think it's hard, and honestly, it took me a little while to figure it out. I just would spend a lot of time thinking with myself. I like to walk. I like to, um, buzz around and just kind of think about things. And I think it's important to remember why, and to remember, um, you even started playing hockey at all, and why I wanted to play at this level. And I think it's hard to it's easier said than done, but you kind of have to try to bring yourself back to the reason why you love playing this game. And for me, that was staying out after practice to kind of like play around and shoot pucks, because that's what I love to do growing up on my back door on my rink outside. So like I think just kind of getting back to the basics and just kind of trying to refresh yourself is what works for me.
Now, during your sophomore year, your team went on a good run to start off the season. How important was that run for your team for the start of the season that season? And what was the message in the locker room during that time period?
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. That's probably one of my favorite Brown hockey memories. I think a lot of people were just energized to play. We had a new coaching staff, and people were excited. And um, I think we caught the teams that we beat, Cornell and Colgate, by surprise. And that got a lot of buzz to our team, which is good, just because around the league it showed that like we could play when we showed up, and we deserve that respect. And a lot of people, or excuse me, some teams would think that, okay, they're playing Brown, maybe it's just an easy game rollover, but that wasn't what we were going to do. And I think that was pretty much the message in the locker room. It doesn't matter um, who's what on paper, but if you show up and play your game, then usually you'll be successful.
Now, heading into your junior year, what type of leadership did you want to bring to the team? Were you more of a lead by example type of player or more of a vocal leader in the locker room?
Yeah, I would probably say I'm a more vocal leader. I'm a loud girl for sure. And I had to step into that leadership role pretty early. I was elected the assistant captain as a sophomore, so I didn't really get to act. I wasn't really allowed to act like an underclassman, so I had to grow up pretty quickly, especially because um, we had two main captains at the time, but one of them got hurt, so I kind of had to assume that role with one of the main captains. So for me, being vocal is something that I always try to do, but um, I think that doesn't mean anything if you're not backing it up. So I kind of like to do a mix of both, but um, yeah, I think that if I knew that I didn't want to be a hypocrite, and if I wasn't working hard, then and I was yelling at people, not yelling at people, but obviously encouraging people to work hard, I had to show them that I was doing it too, so they believe in you.
Was that, in your opinion, the biggest improvement you made to your game was your leadership skills, or was it something else? Because I always like to ask former players, what do you think was the biggest improvement you made to your game from your freshman year for yourself into your junior year, obviously, since you never played your senior year?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of different things, but I think the biggest improvement for me was intangible. Um, I think it was my confidence. I think my junior year, I think I played pretty well. Probably one of my better seasons of hockey throughout my life, and I played a different position. I played forward, so maybe I think that took a little bit of pressure off me, because I knew that if I coughed the puck up in the offensive zone, I had defense to back me up. But yeah, I just think that having more confidence in my game, driving to the net, I think I had a great summer. The summer before that, I worked out really hard with my trainer. I leaned out and I got where I wanted to be, and I think that was helpful as well. So I think it was a mix of both, but I think the biggest thing for me was the confidence.
Now, last year, your season was canceled. Where did you find out that news, and what was your reaction to that news, knowing that you probably played your final college hockey game your junior year and you didn't even know it, like you just said in the beginning of this podcast?
Yeah, it was tough. We were just on a team Zoom, and I think a few of my classmates and I were musing about it. Um, and it's one of those things where you don't know how it actually feels until you feel it and you experience it. And it was pretty devastating. But at the time, and I kind of kept this under wraps. I had been having some shoulder issues since before my sophomore year, and it was getting pretty bad. So I knew the writing on the wall for me was that I wasn't going to play, and that I was going to go under and get surgery. So that was a decision that I made actually a few days before it was announced that the season was canceled. So I was kind of in those emotions already, but I think I felt for my classmates, because um, I was considering doing a fifth year somewhere, and I did look at some places, but I felt bad for my teammates in my own class, because they experienced that, and that's a shock. And I think it takes a while to process those emotions, because you spent the duration of your life having the identity of being a hockey player and then all of a sudden you're not. So it's pretty hard to digest.
Yeah, especially with other college hockey teams having a season, did that make the news even worse as the year went on, just because you saw other teams having a chance to play?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bite my tongue pretty hard on this one because I've definitely got some things to say about it, especially regarding the Ivy League as a whole. But especially because my younger sister got to play, and that was, it's pretty devastating because a lot of girls, like we've talked about, got their career ended without them even knowing it, and for us to see other people playing, it's difficult, and it's frankly, it sucks to watch because if they could figure out a safe way to play and follow protocols and keep everyone safe that's involved, why couldn't we? So I'll leave it at that before I get myself in trouble. But yeah, it was hard to watch for sure.
Now, what made you not want to do a fifth year? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of different things. I'm 23. I would have been 24 playing against some 18-year-olds, and no shade to anyone doing that, but I think I wanted to get out and work, and my body's tired, my hips hurt. It's a lot to continue training. It's really demanding on the body, and also, I have career aspirations. I'd love to be a lawyer one day, and that requires schooling. So, I wanted to get out and get my feet wet in the legal world before I decided to do that. And so I think that was, kind of my main priority. I love hockey. I'll always love it, and I'll miss it dearly. But it was time for me to enter this next phase of my life.
Now, what did you do during the time of what would have been your season last year? Just pretty much academics online, or was like there any hockey involved, I guess?
Yeah, so our team actually, we were still training, but we were divided into pods. Obviously, I was out for a long time. I left school for a month in October because that's when I got my surgery, and I just wanted to do the recovery at home. Where I had my mom um, helping me out. But a lot of the girls, we were lifting, doing the conditioning, skating. I actually got to skate for the last week, which was pretty exciting, and I'm glad I got to get out there with some of the freshmen that I hadn't been able to skate with before. But pretty much, yeah, just doing what everyone else is doing, sitting at my desk in my college house, watching or looking at my lectures, taking notes, doing all that fun stuff.
Yeah, how'd you deal with online schooling? Because I feel like as a senior, you're used to doing college all in person. Then all of a sudden, your final year, you have to make the transition to online school.
Yeah, it was really weird, and I personally wasn't a fan. I mean, I'm a people person. I like to be immersed in a crowd, and I think that especially when there's intellectually stimulating conversation going on. I know that sounds pretty nerdy, but especially with classes within my majors, I like to be even if I'm not participating in these conversations, I still like to be in them, and I like to learn that way. Especially because in my smaller classes, I usually would create a relationship with my professor. So it's a lot harder to do. Obviously, when you're looking at a computer, and it's translated now because my job is still online, and there are a lot of people that I have yet to meet, but I've just looked at them through the computer, so it's weird, and I hope one day that we won't have to do this again, but for now we'll deal, and it's fine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the biggest thing that I didn't like about online school was because all the work was online, and I'm assuming that's the way for college for the most part, even though I'm not quite sure since I'm only a freshman or just finished my freshman year. So just trying to the motivation to get your work done was super difficult for me last year, just because when you're in your room, you're not used to like doing schoolwork. You're used to just laying around and not doing much. So that was probably the toughest part, was just having that surrounding of like trying to motivate yourself to do work and get it done in a good pace so you can still catch up or be caught up with your class. So I feel like whenever I went to the library or other stuff, that's when I like got more work done in a better pace, and I feel like I did a better job with my work, just because I wasn't in my room being distracted by multiple things.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I've found myself in that spot sometimes too, and I think it's hard to be disciplined, especially if I had a few classes that were recorded so I could watch them whenever I wanted to. And so for me, I'm definitely a creature of habit and I like my schedule. So I would physically write out, and block out times during my day where this is what I would do. I would do homework, I would study, I would do my class, take a break, go for a walk, physical therapy, anything like that. So that was my key to be successful. But I know it's not everyone's like that. But I don't know. I'm just a hardo that way, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, no, the only thing I liked about online school is I feel like it was easier to manage your time, just because you had, I feel like, at least in my opinion, I feel like you had more free time to get stuff done. And it was easier to get your stuff done because I also had some asynchronous classes as well. So you got to do it like it wasn't like a lecture style. They just gave you the work. So you got to spread out your work in your own free time, which I thought was nice. So that was like the one, I guess, caveat to the whole online school thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think I found the same sort of pleasure in that because, I think there was give and take with anything, and it obviously, like you said, it wasn't all bad. So that was good. But I think, I would definitely, if I was still in school, I would like to, be in the physical class for
Mhm.
sure.
How'd you deal with the Zoom breakout rooms? Because I thought those got super awkward at times, especially for some of my gen eds as a freshman. I'm assuming for yourself was probably a little bit easier since you're taking mostly classes directed towards your major. So more
Mhm.
people would talk during those breakout rooms, but sometimes for myself it was very difficult.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, honestly. The you think the older people get, the more they grow up, but that's not always the case.
Hmm.
So honestly, it was a wild card because I did take a few electives that weren't really in my major, and I think some of the breakout rooms were pretty lively, some weren't. But I guess with the classes within my major, Brown isn't too big of a school. I think it's like 8,000 or something, but um, a lot of these kids I had at least seen before, and I knew, like, we knew each other even if we didn't like have a close relationship at all. So it honestly depended on the class and on the day. On Fridays they weren't that lively as you
Hmm.
can probably imagine, but I don't know, they weren't too bad. And I can't say that I was a super active participant in all of them, but I did what I could.
Hmm. I just want to get those participation points for my grade. That's why I
Absolutely.
participated. I
Hmm.
think that's why they made participation for the breakout room so people can at least somewhat talk. Because if there was no participation points for breakout rooms, I feel like it would be even more dead than they usually were.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%.
Now, when you look back on your college hockey career, what will you remember the most?
um There are a few things. I think obviously, you remember the good times you had with your teammates, all the fun you had on and off the ice and the road trips. But I think the biggest thing that I'm gonna remember is, it's about myself and it's about my development, both as a hockey player, but more as a person. Like I mentioned, coming into that leadership role, as an underclassman, I had to grow up pretty quick, like I said, and so, um, you know, there there are there are growing pains with any sort of new position like that. But I'm pretty proud of the way that I handled that, and I'm proud of the leader that I became and that I am today. So um I grew a lot, and that's not without its mistakes. But I definitely, I hope that I impressed something on some of the younger girls that I left behind at school.
Now, you have a younger sister, Julia, who also plays college hockey. You were mentioning her throughout the podcast. I just want to ask you, what's it like having a younger sibling that also plays hockey, and how have you tried to help her career when she was with Boston University and still is?
Yeah. It's been fun. I think Julia and we are pretty close. Like any sibling duo, you're gonna have some bickering. But Julia and I have spent a lot of time together over the years. We train together, we skate together. She's definitely one of my biggest supporters, and I'm definitely one of hers. And I think that um, she's a good person to talk to for me because she's someone who's unbiased in the way, because she knows the game really well. I think she knows it better than I do, I'd say. And I think it's easy to bounce stuff off of her because it's not your parent, it's not your coach, it's not your teammate. And I think having that unbiased sort of set of ears to listen to is good. And I've been that for her. And I think it's easy to talk out your frustrations about your game or the way that the game has happened. So it's been a lot of fun, and this was actually her first summer, training and skating without me. So I always used to joke, wave to her as she going out the door, have fun. Like I'm not, I don't have to go anymore.
Hmm.
Um, so it's been a lot of fun, and I'm super grateful because a lot of people, don't get to have this sort of relationship with their sibling, and I'm really lucky that I have it with Julia.
And is there any funny stories you have with her, like any good sibling rivalry growing up, or maybe even during college hockey as well?
Yeah, probably during high school actually. Um, she and I actually went to rival high schools. She went to Brooks School, and I went to the Governor's Academy. And we played against each other in field hockey. And I mean, my team was better than hers, so that wasn't really a problem. But she'll kill me for saying that later. But in hockey, my junior year actually, that was my first time playing against Julia, and I was pretty sad that she didn't come to Govs with me because she said she was going to.
Mhm.
I forgive her now, I guess, now that we went to Kent together. But yeah, it was pretty nice. I actually I scored the game winner and she was on the ice, so I got to give her that little dash. It's not really a funny story, but definitely something that I can hold to her.
Mhm. Definitely. And obviously, it probably motivated her for the rest of the season to like try to prove you wrong.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Julia's a great player, and she has a lot of intangible qualities that a lot of players would kill to have. So I don't really have to bust her too hard, but I think any sort of perspective or reality check is good for
Mhm.
any player, no matter how good you are.
Yeah, and being the older sibling, is there like kind of like a different dynamic between I guess like is there a different dynamic being the older sibling versus probably being the younger sibling? Because I'm the youngest sibling in my family. So I feel like it's probably a little bit I probably have a different perspective with my sibling rivalry versus than what you might have.
Yeah, I think I I've definitely assumed some sort of caretaker roles at times with Julia. Not all the time for sure. She's her own person, but um, I think that, yeah, I don't know, just being that older siblings, I've had to walk so she could run in some areas, and she's gonna say that's not true, but it is. So I think it's not easy being the older sibling, but you have your own challenges being the younger sibling as well. So I think I was the one getting us out the door, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing that the oldest sibling is you have to like you're kind of like the lab rat. You have to experience everything first. So then when you're the youngest sibling, when you go in that situation, you already have someone to talk to about it. So you have like kind of a perspective of going into maybe a certain hockey game or a certain team and stuff like that. So I think that's like the one benefit that I've noticed being the youngest sibling.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I don't mind being the older sibling. If I can pass on any sort of advice or pointers to help her, to help anyone that's younger than me, I'm definitely willing to do it because why not? If it was hard for me, I'd want it to be easier for someone else. So I don't mind, and I've assumed that role, but obviously, it's it has its moments of being not that fun.
So we're now in the segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit off the ice. My first non-hockey question is, what is your favorite movie?
That's a hard question, but honestly, probably Goodwill Hunting. I'll stick with my Boston roots.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good movie. I've never seen it before, and it's probably a shame that I've never seen it just because I'm from Boston as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. It's a lengthy one, and I think um, I don't know. It's just it's a great movie. I wish I could articulate it better, but I think it shows that no matter who you are, you can be what you want if you put the work in. And obviously, there are other factors that go into it, like race, and all that stuff. So I won't. I'll acknowledge that, but it's a great movie, and you should definitely watch it, especially being from Boston.
Yeah, no, it's for those like 2.5, 3 hour movies.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I'd much rather watch a hockey game instead during that time than a movie, but I'll definitely try to get my hands on it before the season starts this fall.
Yeah, definitely. You should.
Now, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
Um, Probably Jennifer Lawrence. I think she's funny, but I think she's very real, and she tells it like it is. And I think that's something that I try to be. So I think that it would be pretty cool having her play me. I would actually love to see that.
You think you guys look alike at all?
No. Not
Oh,
really, but I just think she's funny and I like her attitude. I'm
yeah,
sure
that's
they could throw a blonde wing on her.
No, I just think it's interesting because I think sometimes people pick celebrities that they look like, and then some players pick celebrities that they have similar personalities to. So I find it interesting to hear like how they chose, why they chose that person.
Hmm.
Now, next non-hockey question is, who is the funniest teammate you had when you were with Brown?
KJ Blumberg for sure, hands down. She is an absolute clown, but in the best way. She's hysterical.
Now, you obviously had the best style on the team, and it's going to be
Um,
hard for the team now to try to top that. But besides yourself, who had the best style on the team? Who was second place?
Maddie Stockfish for sure.
Hmm.
She knows what's up.
What style did she like wear, I guess? Because I feel like as a men's hockey player, usually it's pretty simple what you wear before games. However, for you guys on the female side of things, I feel like you have a lot more options, so it might be a little more difficult to choose what to wear.
Yeah, I think we were game dress was always dress up even on the road. And our coach actually instituted a rule that we had to wear black pants, so we kind of had to work around that. But like she had great style, the long pea coats, nice press trousers, all that good stuff. So definitely her.
Nice. Are you excited to see what she's going to pull off for this upcoming season?
I am, yeah. Hopefully, I think one time she mentioned getting a hat to me. So we'll see. We'll see if she follows through with that. That doesn't really fit her style entirely, but I don't know. We'll see.
I've noticed a lot of hats for pregame walkthrough, so I wouldn't be surprised if she pulls it off.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Now, back to some hockey questions now. My first question to you is, what do you think should be done to help grow women's hockey?
I think that just going into areas where girls hockey isn't as prevalent and trying to start programs there, I think, um, even in Beverly, like there still isn't a girls hockey team. A lot of these girls have to go to other places in Massachusetts. I had to travel like about an hour away just to play some good girls hockey. And I think just continuing to grow the game through creating other programs is going to be really huge, especially because, there are a bunch of little girls that love to skate, and I think that if they had more female role models like in their line of vision, then they would definitely be way more apt and excited to play.
Now, what advice would you give those younger players who are trying to pursue a career in Division One college hockey?
I think I would love to say something like acutely profound right now, but I think about the things that I would have loved to hear when I was a 12-year-old or 14-year-old and struggling with, you know, my confidence or how to play my game. And I think there are a few things, and I think first one is to focus on yourself. I think a lot of people love to look around and compare themselves to others, and it's important to realize what's out there, but you can't control any of that. You can only control what you do, and I'm a firm believer in you get out what you put into things. If you aren't going to show up, if you're not going to put the work in, then you're not going to get the results that you want. We're not entitled to anything in this world and in this life, and if you want something, you have to go and take it. And I think the biggest thing for me to have heard when I was younger, or anyone else struggling with confidence, is like you're doing it for yourself, and don't give up on yourself, and always have faith in yourself, because at the end of the day, that's all you really have. So
Now, do you have any shout outs you'd like to give to any of your former teammates, family members, or friends?
yeah, I'll shout out my sister really quickly. Sorry I gave you that dash one, even though you've given me plenty over the years. Shout out to my family. I love you guys. Shout out to the pandas in Providence. I know you'll miss me. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, just shout out to anyone who's been there for me on this crazy ride. I'm so grateful for it. I'm sad that it's over, but all good things must come to an end.
Well, shout out to you, Abby, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on. I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And it was an honor interviewing today. So take care and stay safe. And I usually try to go to a couple Browns games throughout the season. So if you see me there, feel free to reach out and say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Now, one question I want to ask